And we're live today on Imagine Fitting In podcast with Doug Garner. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you for having me be here. I've heard of the show. I'm looking forward.
Well, thank you so much, sir. One of my clients, I have to do a shout out right away to Cullen Bauer. Cullen was introduced to me by a dear friend, and he has worked with me for probably over a year. I bet it's going on nearly 2 years as in the my fitness world as being a professional fitness person. So he mentioned he goes, I think I got a guy that would be really great for you to talk to, and has been doing some really amazing stuff. And Doug, I usually like to start by just saying, what are you into today, right now? Like, what keeps you busy, and what's your focus these days?
Well, I stay busy a couple ways. One is I just took our book series and turned it into a website. So we have a website now, or I do, and am posting a lot of information about training in wheelchair, especially high performance training. And
Nice.
then my other part, the other part of it is I've done some programs with the Global Sports Mentoring Outfit, which works under the State Department. And I just went to Peru a few months ago, and I'm scheduling a trip down to South Africa to the mentees who came up to Texas when I was up there. They were from South Africa. So I came, and the Global Sports Mentoring Program, which does an amazing job. In the spring they do adapted sports, and in the fall they do women's sports. And so they vet people from all over the world and bring them in for a training program on becoming what you can do to be more professional, what kind of books you can read, or learning how to plan, or things like that. So I've been traveling quite a bit as well, and I'm a classifier for International Wheelchair Basketball Federation, and so I've traveled to many places to work wheelchair basketball tournaments.
That's really wonderful, Doug. We'd love to be able to explore some of that, those associations that you had, and those current, goings on. Doug, I'm not sure quite. I've been around. I mean, I was born in the Midwest, but I'm not quite sure if I hear what kind of accent. Where were you born, and where'd you grow up?
Born in Camden, Arkansas. And so not long after that, we moved to New Orleans. Not long after that, we moved to Downers Grove, Illinois. And not long after that, we moved to Ohio. And not military. My dad was a multiple bag salesman, and he did that. So that involved moving the family quite a bit. Then ended up down in Arkansas for through high school and into college. Went to college in Shreveport, Louisiana, Centenary College, and ended up staying in Arkansas, in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Okay. And, I would tell you, I think I hear that. I hear the Louisiana, the New Orleans side of that. And that's it's what do you call it? It's unique. There's a well, how do I describe it? There's like a really interesting vibrato variation of dialects that that are interesting to me. They're really unique. So I could tell like okay, he's from the United States, but where's he from? So I'm fascinated with people and dialects, and I've been around the world quite a few times here and there, which I've stated on my podcast multiple times. But anyway, Doug, so tell me about like your academic foundation, like in it. I guess it spans psychology, sociology, behavioral science, and when did you see how movement, could become such a teaching tool?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. My plan going to undergraduate was psychology, sociology. Then I got out of school and I married into the gymnastics business. And my wife and I were gymnastics coaches, and that kind of grew into a full 40,000 square foot children's fitness center where we picked up kids for after school programs and summer day camp
Wow.
programs. We had a big discovery zone type playground, a cheer gym, added a swimming pool. So that's what I did for, we had the business for 26 years. Then we moved to Texas. Oh, in the meantime, in those later years, my son was born with a disability. He was born with spina bifida. And mid 80s, late 80s, Arkansas, there wasn't a whole lot going on as far as adapted sports. But we found an adult coach in Little Rock, which was about an hour and a half away. And my son wanted to do sports. He did all kinds of sports, but he just really loved the individual sports. He was a really good swimmer, track, and then basketball. You can't have a basketball team with one person. So we started a program for kids with disabilities. And we would do like monthly, find out about sports kind of fun and games for kids who'd never had that opportunity. In PE, kids learn about their body through physical education classes in theory, but most of the time the kids in wheelchairs were the referee, the scorekeeper, the equipment
Right.
manager, because people didn't really think about or know how to keep them active. So got involved in that and had some success. Turns out we had some really good players in Arkansas, and then moved on from there into kind of, and we kept that team as long as we could. Moved on and found some things to do at the national level, and that all pretty much kept me busy with two kids. Our second son was born 364 days after my first son. It's like having a couple young ones in the house for a while. And he has turned into a manager and he was a restaurant manager, and then they went bankrupt. The whole chain went bankrupt. So now he's in administration and a manager in a totally different field. But he's also, I'd say, semi-pro bowler. Travels
Oh,
around
nice.
some and enters bowling tournament. He's bowled a few 300s in his day, and
That's impressive. I
it
mean,
is.
and any average American that knows bowling can appreciate even getting close to a 300.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
is that what originally drew you into coaching for, when your son was born, you realized was that the big push toward that area? And like when you're younger, you mentioned psychology and sociology. What, were you destined for that direction before your son was born? I'm curious.
No, actually, I was in the restaurant business at that time, and few years after that, married into the gymnastics business. And I wasn't a gymnast; I was a baseball player. But
Okay.
read a story about Bella Crowley and how he was a team handball coach and turned into an Olympic coach. So I just studied a lot, did as much as I could, um, coaching gymnastics. And so that turned into, if we want our kids to be, or especially Tyler, if we wanted them to be active and healthy, we were going to have to create it ourselves, because was
Engage
it the
them.
knowledge or awareness to do anything with that population.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I mean, it sounds like, as we know, the universe we collide, and circumstance, we have opportunities. And then through those opportunities, obviously you not only discovered, but it sounds like you really jumped head first and after your son was born, and I commend you on that. That's a really awesome, and it's like, it really is, I think it's a great message about purpose and kind of tenacity in this day and age where we understand that, like you mentioned, there wasn't that whole lot of what do you call it, opportunities for the kids, as besides, right, being kind of watching and whatever. So that's wonderful. So now, so Doug, looking back, I know you're still going forward, obviously. What coaching mistakes became some of your greatest teachers? Did you have any moments or like, whoops?
Well, maybe the worst mistake would be, maybe call it failure to listen. Maybe you get this hubris, I'm the coach kind of thing. So you're not going to listen to a player who maybe just got there, maybe a freshman, maybe somebody who we recruited from overseas. So just taking a minute before I speak on different things and make sure I'm listening from the voice that I need to be listening from.
Okay. That is a wonderful nugget.
Yeah. A player came up to me in a huddle in a game and tried to say something about what was happening, and I didn't listen. And watching film later, I was like, he was right, but it's hard to listen to everybody in the middle of a game.
Yeah, in the moment, and I can't help. That's a great nugget, Doug. It's one of the things about my podcast is I'm looking for nuggets of inspiration and insights, and sometimes it's very simple, right? And
right.
who's never been in a high stress situation and somebody's trying to tell them something, and you're like, oh wait, I can't deal with it, or later. But I think it makes me think of, you lived in Illinois, I was in Chicago, and I got to see Doug Collins leave the Bulls head coach job and Phil Jackson walk in. And Phil Jackson was the master of understanding that each player had their own particular kind of space and universe, both on and off the field. And he would give them specific authors and books which he felt that would help bring them to identify their true nature and their contribution to, kind of like when you're in your surroundings, right? We are participating in this evolving universal exchange of experience, right? These beings bumping up in front of each other and trying to coexist. But then when you say sports team, right? To be running down the basketball court, back down to the offensive side to take some shots while you're running down there, like, so confident, have to be confident in yourself about your skills, but to just trust that the others that you play with are going to be there for you. So don't hesitate for even a split second to trust your instincts where you believe, as of your fellow players, they're going to be there. They see you, right? It's almost like this telepathic kind of communication where, like, oh, right, as soon as you get that ball and start to break, look down the court and you see one of your key guys enough to get a situation where he can take that to the next level to the next guy. So I think Phil Jackson was a master of that, obviously, 6 titles later.
Totally agree. You got all of his books.
I regress, but, kind of on point. But so Doug, how do you personally stay grounded, in your endeavors? You said you're retired, how do you stay grounded, healthy, after serving? I mean, you're obviously serving decades in this, helping others in this high responsibility role, but almost self-induced, where you're like, now you're do you feel that you're more free and comfortable since you're retired to like really have a nice flow for yourself to keep care of yourself while you're still engaged with this?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes life will remind me to stay focused on, what I'm doing, where I am, what's going on. But you have to be willing to hear it too. You have to be willing to hear what life is telling you.
And the misses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Try not to think about those too much.
It's interesting because, as I mentioned, earlier, that, I believe that we're having these kind of mentoring exchange, just obviously any exchange of ideas, is that we're nurturing ourselves along the way here and supporting realizations that we've known for a long time, reminding of us of the ones that are really kind of simple and key, but sometimes like we take for granted.
Absolutely.
And I think I think that translates back to when we were talking about inclusivity for others, right? In terms of, look outside yourself more. And I think, we discover a lot more so, and my service to people and my clientele, as the balance professor,
Yeah.
it has been very rewarding and trying to create additional insights because the amount of mental focus that my clients need to take and time to focus on is not typically what they're experiencing when other trainers or other situations. And I think that it unfolds not only a new physical potential, but a new clarity of potential of the mental focus and awarenesses that sometimes, I'm sure you can agree with this, sometimes our biggest awarenesses when we're not thinking at all, right? When we're just completely, kind of like, what's next,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what, Doug, obviously you've been in this game, in that particular field and area. What advice would you give to educators and coaches who, want to be more inclusive, but know where to start? Obviously you have your book.
Well, I think being inclusive is you've opened it up enough for them to come to practice, but then understand how they're going to have a role in that practice as well. Most coaches I've met through the years are well aware of, if they're new, even if they're new coaches, they're well aware that these are kids and that they're all in different stages of learning and physicalness and all that part of it. So, hopefully coaches get to that space where they can take each athlete as a unique and separate athlete.
Okay. Yeah, that's another great nugget, Doug, in terms of, because, I can only imagine, like most schools, there's quite a volume of kids, and, that those young age, it's all kind of crazy, but that time, I guess time over tension over time with the various individuals of the students, I would think that, to try to be able to grab glimpses of each of those individuals and how they're operating and how they come in, the behavioral type stuff and, their engagement. So that's one of the things I'm working on, which, my program is more targeted toward able-bodied children in terms of physicality challenges on their feet in their day-to-day life and their learning in the education space with all subjects. But that doesn't necessarily not include people that have challenges in that, in terms of their physicality, like we talked about before, right? What were they blessed with or not blessed with? What are they making the most on a physiological plane? And I go back to that, talking about active-based learning and the fact that, with that engagement and movement, which I was one of those ADHD kids, and I just couldn't stop moving and to pay attention. And it was through my physiology and working out and getting in tune with my body that I became so empowered and confident and centered that I understood, like, this is what I want to teach others. Like, I cannot not share what I've discovered. And as an artist, I'm always a communicator, and I've come to feel that have a very interesting and unique communication style to engage and motivate, encourage. And I'm looking to try, like you, right, to empower the children and empower the people around all of them who can continue, right, that legacy of contributions. So that's, again, I commend you for your work and your commitment and your focus. It's obviously helped you develop into the man that you are today, and the travels and the engagement, and being able to just comment on a trip out of the country to kind of like open a person's eyes. I think it's more powerful than we know. I think most people don't understand that everything that comes out of your lips, there's potential there. And it's like, if you come from I'm not going to say that you have to walk around like you're going to try to convince everybody what everything you say, but realize your words matter, and they do have value in a context if you can keep kind of in your own flow where, you're open. And the more open we are, the more, like we said, go back to, the more awarenesses we can see, more we see. But Doug, I want to thank you for your time, but I definitely want to ask you, how should communities in schools, as I mentioned, how should they rethink, their physical education to better support even mental health and belonging and lifelong wellness, which is one of my big ones?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it too. I think sometimes physical educators look at a kid with a disability as a medical need that they need to be aware of or look out of, and not from a acceptance need or a social need. There's so many needs. It's not just, what am I going to do with a guy in a wheelchair? It's, what can I do to help him reach his own potential with what he has? Like all students, we take what they have and we try to help them move forward with their lives.
Mm-hmm. I will say that from experience, that I'm basically a self-educated physiotherapist, and I'm certified. I'm recognized by National Academy of Sports Medicine as a trainer. And I'm actually been recognized with my program. I have a program called Beamwork Trainer Course that is good for continuing education credits for trainers, integrating static and dynamic balance progressions. And why I say that is because when you mentioned all that empowerment and not limiting, like, what they don't know, what can I do with this person? For me, it challenged me where I had to, even another situation where all of a sudden I'm a trainer in New Jersey, and I'm working for a company who has a facility that all my clientele, I went from having a clientele to 18-year-olds to 50-year-olds to a clientele to 50-year-olds to 90-year-olds. And all of a sudden I had to adapt, reorganize my thoughts about how I approach, create my own approach, research what's out there, right? Adapt things that I know that they should kind of be challenged with. And then that was my biggest self-education ever. And it has become invaluable to have me understand that, if I'm training somebody at 40 years old, I'm considering what they're going to be like at 75. Right? I'm training for short and long-term success, and
absolutely,
that health and wellness.
Absolutely.
So Doug, again, please share the name of your book and your website again.
The book is Speed Training for Wheelchair Basketball, and the website is www.speed-training-for-basketball.net. Thank you for having me. What we're talking about, and especially what you do on a day-to-day basis, it all makes a difference.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate those words. Well, thank you, sir. As we share in this discussion, our efforts both kind of mutual in terms of educating, awareness, empowering, and
Absolutely.
bringing more light to the importance of that. Everyone's physiological makeup, it does not define the person, just like everyone's financial or circumstance or society's, title, role makes them any more important than on a humanity level. And realize that we're, again, the greatest country in the world, and that should be proud Americans taking care of each other. And I like to think that I'm just bringing something positive. And in these days, if you don't, and I don't want to sound like I'm preachy or promoty, but sometimes just being quiet, if you don't have anything nice to say, that's being kind, So anyway, Doug, I thank you so much for your time, and you take care.
Bye, Greg. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'll be in touch.
Great.
All right, everyone. Till next time, kids. Bye-bye.